here's something that's shaking the international community to its core. While world leaders are literally watching what they call a famine unfolding before our eyes, military operations continue to intensify in one of the world's most densely populated areas. Gaza City finds itself under what residents describe as relentless aerial bombardment, according to the territory's Hamas-operated civil defense authorities. This escalation comes as Israeli military forces gear up for what they're calling a comprehensive operation to assume control over the entire city. Mahmoud Basal, serving as the official spokesperson for the Civil Defense Agency, painted a grim picture of the situation. He explained that the neighborhoods of Zaytun and Sabra have endured 3 consecutive days of what he termed devastating strikes. The assault has reportedly caused catastrophic damage to residential buildings, leaving local residents completely unable to retrieve bodies of the deceased or provide assistance to the wounded trapped beneath the debris. But here's where international tensions reach a boiling point. A coalition of major world powers, including the United Kingdom, the European Union, Australia, Canada, and Japan, released an unprecedented joint declaration. Their message was stark and unambiguous. Famine is unfolding in front of our eyes, and they're demanding immediate intervention to reverse starvation. These nations aren't mincing words. They've called for immediate, permanent, and concrete steps to ensure humanitarian aid can flow freely into Gaza. However, Israel categorically disputes claims of starvation occurring within the territory. Instead, Israeli officials have pointed fingers at United Nations agencies, accusing them of failing to collect aid supplies, waiting at border crossings, and distribute them to those in need. And this is the part that's sparking heated international debate. The joint statement didn't stop at demanding aid access. These world powers also called for an immediate cessation of what they describe as lethal force being used near humanitarian distribution centers and aid convoy routes. According to UN documentation, more than 1,300 Palestinians have lost their lives at these locations, with the vast majority of these deaths attributed to Israeli military actions. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization made an urgent public appeal on Tuesday, pleading with Israel to permit the stockpiling of critical medical supplies. This request comes as health officials warn of what they're calling a catastrophic medical crisis that could worsen dramatically before Israeli forces take control of Gaza City. Rick Pieperkorn, who represents the WHO in Palestinian territories, didn't hold back in his assessment. Everyone keeps talking about more humanitarian supplies are being allowed in, but frankly, it's simply not happening yet, or it's moving at an impossibly slow rate, he stated with obvious frustration. Our priority is rapidly restocking hospitals with essential supplies, he emphasized, but we're currently blocked from doing so. We desperately need access to get all critical medicines and medical equipment where they're needed. Here's what's got the international community on edge. Israel's war cabinet made a decisive vote on Monday to proceed with taking complete control of Gaza City. This decision immediately triggered an emergency session of the UN Security Council that very evening, where the move faced sharp condemnation. By Tuesday, the Israel Defense Forces announced they were entering the initial phase of a new combat operation. While Israeli leadership hasn't released specific timelines for when their forces will move into the targeted areas, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu provided some clarity on Sunday. He revealed that Israeli forces had received orders to dismantle what he identified as the final 2 Hamas strongholds, one located in Gaza City itself and another in a central zone surrounding al-Mawasi. Netanyahu also unveiled what he described as a comprehensive three-phase strategy to boost humanitarian aid delivery to Gaza. This plan includes establishing designated safe passages for aid distribution, increasing aerial supply drops conducted by Israeli forces alongside international partners, and expanding overall aid coordination efforts. But here's the stark reality on the ground that contradicts these promises. Gaza City residents report experiencing what they describe as continuous, unrelenting aerial attacks. Majed al-Hasri, who lives in the Zaytun district of Gaza City, shared his terrifying experience with AFP news agency. The bombardment has been absolutely brutal for 2 straight days, he explained. Every single strike makes the entire ground tremble beneath our feet. There are people who've been killed and are buried under collapsed buildings, but nobody can reach them because the shelling simply won't stop. Another resident, 25-year-old Amr Salah, told Reuters that the situation felt like a complete restart of warfare. The sound was like the war was beginning all over again, he recalled. Tank shells were hitting residential homes directly, destroying multiple houses, while aircraft conducted what we call fire rings, coordinated missile strikes that hit various roads throughout eastern Gaza. The numbers tell a devastating story. Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry reported that 100 bodies were delivered to hospitals throughout the territory in just the past 24 hours. Of these casualties, 31 individuals were killed specifically at aid distribution locations. The ministry also documented 5 additional deaths directly caused by malnutrition, a stark reminder of the humanitarian crisis unfolding. Israel has been facing escalating international pressure over this conflict, which has now stretched across 22 months of warfare with Hamas. UN-supported experts have been issuing increasingly urgent warnings about widespread famine conditions developing throughout the blockaded territory. But here's where it gets controversial, and this might surprise you. On Tuesday, members of an internationally respected group called the Elders, composed of former world leaders, made their most explosive statement yet. For the very first time, they officially characterized the war in Gaza as what they termed an unfolding genocide, placing direct blame on Israel for deliberately causing famine conditions among the Palestinian population. Following their fact-finding mission to the Gaza border region, 2 prominent members, Helen Clark, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, and Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland, issued a joint declaration that sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. What we personally witnessed and heard during our visit reinforces our firm belief that there isn't just a human-caused famine developing in Gaza, they stated unequivocally. There is an unfolding genocide taking place. What makes this accusation even more significant is that it echoes statements from prominent Israeli human rights organizations themselves. Groups like B'Tselem have reached what they call an unequivocal conclusion that Israel is actively attempting to systematically destroy Palestinian society throughout the Gaza Strip. Naturally, Israel vehemently rejects these explosive accusations. Israeli officials maintain that their military forces specifically target terrorist operatives and never deliberately harm civilians. They consistently argue that Hamas bears complete responsibility for the suffering experienced by Gaza's population, claiming the militant group uses civilians as human shields. The controversy deepened further when this past Sunday, the Israeli Defense Forces killed 4 Al Jazeera journalists in what they described as a targeted strike on a media facility in Gaza City. This action sparked immediate and widespread international condemnation. 2 additional freelance journalists also lost their lives in the attack. The IDF claimed they had eliminated well-known reporter Anas al-Sharif, whom they alleged functioned as the leader of a terrorist cell within Hamas. Notably, they provided no explanation for the deaths of the other journalists. Media freedom organizations have challenged Israel's claims, arguing that insufficient evidence has been provided to support these serious allegations. Al Jazeera's managing editor responded by accusing Israel of attempting to silence any form of reporting coming from inside Gaza. To understand the full scope of this conflict, Hamas's initial attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, resulted in more than 1,200 Israeli deaths and the capture of 251 hostages. Israel's subsequent military response in Gaza has led to at least 61,599 Palestinian deaths. According to the Health Ministry's count, which the United Nations considers to be a reliable source. So here's the question that's dividing the international community. Are we witnessing a legitimate military operation against terrorism, or something far more troubling? What do you think? Is there a line between military necessity and what critics are calling systematic destruction? The world is watching, and the debate is far from over.